Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you are tuning in from. It's a very great honor and a very great pleasure for the Near Eastern Studies program at Princeton University and Princeton's Lewis Center for the Arts to be hosting a great Arabic novelist today, Dr. Alaa Al Aswany. This is the first of two workshops that Dr. Alaa will be doing with us. At Princeton. This week's is in English, and next week's, also Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, will be in Arabic. Most of you are aware, because you will have seen when you registered, that there were some short readings for today. So we're going to drop those into the chat in case you don't happen to have them handy, and there will be attachments in the chat waiting for you if you need them. A couple of ground rules, and then we'll start the proceedings. If you, at any point during the give and take of discussion, would like to ask a question or make a comment, simply type the word question or comment into the chat, okay? And that way we'll know to call on you, and we'll know what order your comment came in. And I think that's the least chaotic and the most fair way for us to proceed. And if you do not happen to be talking, then please remember to stay muted, because otherwise it can be very distracting for other people. Before we begin and introduce Dr. Alaa, I wanted to thank two people without whom this event would not be happening. The first is Dina Abdulatif, who is the program and lab coordinator in Near Eastern Studies at Princeton. Dina is no stranger to Cairo. She lived there. She has also lived in Khartoum. And not only did Dina do all of the planning and organization for this workshop, this was also her idea in the first place. So I'm really grateful to her for taking this initiative. Second, I want to introduce your MC for this afternoon, Dr. Gregory Bell, who is a lecturer in the Department of Near Eastern Studies and Associate Director of our Arabic language program at Princeton. Dr. Greg has lived in the Sultanate of Oman, in Jordan, and in Cairo. He has a PhD in Arabic and Islamic Studies from the University of Pennsylvania, and he's a specialist in modern Arabic literature and also a translator. So he's going to be your host for today, and he will introduce Dr. Aswany.
Okay, thank you, Marina. I should say, just as a footnote here at the very beginning, I realized when I was putting together a few comments about Dr. Alaa, I could have taken the whole hour to introduce him, I think, easily, but I won't do that, I promise you. I hope no one signed off there when I said that. But let me echo what Marina said. First off, we are really pleased, honored, and I think indeed quite fortunate to be able to welcome to Princeton today, even if it's only virtual Princeton, and we wish we could have you here in front of us, Dr. Alaa, but
thank you very
times
much.
are what they are. The leading Egyptian novelist and literateur, Dr. Alaa Al Aswany. This is really an exciting event for us, as will be the one next Friday as well. So we're really delighted that all of you folks could join us for today's event. As many of you probably already know, Dr. Alaa has authored some of the most popular and most important Arabic novels of the last few decades, and he has achieved a fame in both the Arab world and internationally that has really been nothing short of remarkable, I would say. Dr. Alaa was born in Cairo, so he's a Cairene through and through, I think, but he can tell you more about that. Likewise, he can tell you a bit about his early life, but I'm sure he grew up in a family that appreciated literature and intellectual pursuits, because it comes across in his writing. And indeed, I know his father was a well-known intellectual. And so, but again, he can tell us a little bit more about all that in a moment. He was educated at the Lycée Français in Cairo and went on to take a degree in dentistry at the University of Cairo, and then went on from there to studies in the United States at Chicago, University of Illinois, for advanced dentistry training. So when I refer to him as Dr. Alaa, this isn't just an honorary title. He's able to satisfy our needs for literature and perhaps also fill our teeth. I don't know. In any case, his writing career began, I think, really with newspaper columns and short pieces. He regularly authored columns in the leading newspapers and magazines in Cairo. And I was just looking at some of them that he has articles in. We have things like Ashab, Al-Arabi, Al-Nasri, Al-Dastur, Al-Misri, Al-Yom. I mean, these are major newspapers that were widely read. And interestingly enough, his columns have also appeared oftentimes in translation, but I suspect not always translated from Arabic, but perhaps in the original English or French or whatever, because he knows English, Spanish, and French as well as Arabic. But these pieces appeared in the New York Times, in Le Monde, El País, The Guardian, The Independent, again, major newspapers in the West. After publishing a first novel and numerous short stories in the 90s, Dr. Alaa, I think I will use the word exploded, if I may, exploded onto the Arab literary scene with his novel that you probably all know well, Imarat Yaqubian, the Yaqubian building. The novel, it's really a fascinating look at Egyptian history and culture. And the thing I love about it is it's all sort of put through the prism of this fine, grand old building in Cairo. And to me, whenever I think of this novel, the Imara, the building, it almost feels like the central character of the novel in some ways, as if it's, alive. And obviously it's the people in it and the events in it that really tell the story. This novel was an enormous success, and it was soon being translated into all sorts of languages. Dr. Alaa, perhaps you can tell us, the last count I saw was over 37 languages, I believe. So it has become an international bestseller, as well as an Arabic one, and has a huge following around the world now. It was also adapted into I think we'd have to say, a blockbuster Egyptian movie with incredibly high production values, and it's worth seeing if you haven't seen it, for sure. And it was also later adapted as a television series in Cairo, so it certainly has spawned a long life. However, because the novel touched upon social and political taboos, which is something you find in a number of things he's written. My understanding was that Dr. Alaa, you were banned from attending the premiere of the film. Is that not correct?
Yes, I was banned. Yes.
Yeah, which
I have been always banned.
Yeah, which unfortunately sort of portended things to come, but also seems like a terribly mean-spirited thing.
I must say, 1 second, please. The first lady and her son, Mrs. Mubarak, and Mubarak, the son, were supposed to go to the premiere, and the security state wrote in a report about me that he should not be there because he is unpredictable.
Well, that, if nothing else, that should keep us all looking, viewing today carefully, since who knows what may happen with your unpredictability. Well, the one thing that was perhaps unpredictable, but a definite result of the novel, was that many Egyptians and others around the world, I think, feel, and I believe people said this to you personally when you were in Midan Tahrir during the revolutionary uprising in 2011, many people felt that this novel and other things you've written as well, the frankness of it and your willingness to stand up to say these things publicly that were usually not said, gave people a certain amount of fortitude to go out into the streets. So, but you can tell us a little bit about that when you tell us about your background and your life. But before I ask you to do that, I just also wanted to mention and to recommend to you some of Dr. Alaa's more recent novels. There's the novel Chicago, which was a 2007, but it was translated a few years later, 2016, I think. There's Nadia Sayarat, the Automobile Club, which I think in English, did they add Egypt to it? Automobile Club of Egypt, I think, or of Cairo. And Jamhuriyat Ka'an, which is the Republic of what, falsehoods, lies, something like that. These have all been translated now as well in English. So if you don't read Arabic, they're available to you. He's also penned many other short stories and essays, and I would refer you to the list because I'm not going to read it. I will be here all afternoon. But if you look on either Wikipedia, that's one good place, but also he has a wonderful website, and Dina has shared it or is going to share the link with all of you through the chat. And the website has all kinds of information about him and his writings, and so I would encourage you to take a look at that. Finally, I want to note that it is not only here at Princeton that Dr. Alaa is celebrated. He has received way too many Arab and international awards for me to list them all now, but I do have to mention a few. The Bashrahil Prize from Yemen, for instance, the Great Novel Award from France, the Culture Award in Italy, the Friedrich Award from Germany, the Blue Metropolis Award for Arabic Literature in Canada, which is quite prestigious. Italy has given him several awards, including the Mediterranean Culture Award. Germany awarded him the Johann Philipp Palm Award, and France awarded him the French Ordre de Lettres. And I probably mispronounced that terribly, but in any case, he has been celebrated around the world, which is a kind of a wonderful thing and kind of a remarkable thing when you think about the fact that how many Arab writers do we know that have had this kind of worldwide impact, this kind of international impact? Well, we know one, and he is with us here today. So again, I thank you all for coming, and we thank you, Dr. Alaa, for telling us about your background and something about literature. Tafadhal, ya Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gregory Bell, and for this wonderful introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank the Near Eastern Studies Program and the Lewis Center for the Arts at Princeton University for this generous invitation. I would like to thank Dr. Marina Rosto, Dr. Gregory Bell, and Mrs. Dina Abdel-Latif, who made this lecture possible. I would like also to thank all of you for attending this talk on my approach to teaching creative writing. I'll speak a bit about myself. My name is Alaa Al Aswany. I'm a novelist and dentist. Of course, I'm here as a writer, as a novelist, but if you need any dental consultation, I will be happy to help. I'm fortunate to have achieved great success in the literary world. Dr. Gregory, they talked about this success, so I'm not going to repeat about how many awards I had, but it's a great success, and I'm very proud of that. But when I look back on nearly 40 years I spent as a writer, I have come to see that the success I have realized has not been easy. Egypt, my country, is a nation that has been ruled by a military dictatorship since 1952. In a military dictatorship, your relationship with the regime is only what determines your opportunities. It is not your talent or your effort. If you support the dictator, doors will open for you, even if you are a bad writer. And if you oppose the dictator, you will be severely punished. During the 90s, the Egyptian Ministry of Culture refused to publish my works 3 times: 1990, 1994, 1998. Each time my writing was rejected, I would publish at my own expense about 500 copies that I would distribute among friends and critics. In 1998, after my work was rejected for a 3rd time, I became extremely frustrated. I decided to stop writing and immigrate to New Zealand, where I would become just a dentist. I prepared everything. I took to studying the immigration laws in New Zealand until I have become an expert. I told my wife I have started working on a novel. Once I have completed it, we will immigrate to New Zealand. My wife accepted the idea. That novel was a Jacobean building. Of course, I didn't submit it to the Egyptian Ministry of Culture as I did with my other collections. Instead, it was published by Muhammad Hashim, a revolutionary publisher and friend. The novel immediately became a literary phenomenon. It received exceptional critical praise and became the bestseller in Egypt and the Arab world. That success expanded to the rest of the world. What happened with me might be considered a useful experience. It is my advice to young writers to be certain of themselves, of the talent, to believe in themselves, and to consider writing the most important thing in their life. These 3 pieces of advice were given to me by my father, Alaa Al Aswany, who was a well-known writer and lawyer. When he saw my first writing, he said, listen, you hold a talent, but you must ask yourself each morning, is writing the most important thing in your life? If the answer is yes, continue writing. But if there is anything else in your life more important than writing, I advise you to leave writing because you will never succeed. My father is the one who convinced me to be a dentist. He believed that a writer in a dictatorship should earn his living from another profession in order to be free-thinking and to avoid being financially dependent on the regime. That was a great advice. I am proud that I have not received a single pound from the Egyptian regime. I have lived on what I earned as a dentist and from my writings. Being a dentist also allowed me to see different types of people, which is definitely an inspiration. in creating my characters. Of course, people usually ask me, how do you listen to the stories of your patients when their mouths are open? It's a good question. People are used to the fact that the dentist time is short, and that after a quick smile and few words of greeting, the dentist usually says to you, open your mouth, please. Here, I must say, I am a different kind of dentist. I do care about the people as much as I care about their teeth. My patients become my friends, and many continue to visit me after their treatment have concluded. They come just to talk. Sometimes patients come to my clinic and announce that they don't want to do anything with their teeth today. That's fine, okay. We drink coffee and chat. My clinic is a place for a dental treatment, but it is also a place for human connection. There is a question that is important to consider. What is the difference between a story and a literary work? Are all stories literature? In the south of Egypt and in other places around the world, there are professional storytellers. Their craft is to tell their audiences attractive stories for 1 or 2 hours. Are their stories literary works? There is one important difference between a story and a literary work, in my opinion. It is the human content. The literary work is a story with a human content. Literature is basically an artistic defense of human values. We write and read literature to more closely adhere to truth, justice, goodness, and beauty. The writer must stand in the first row in the battle for freedom. I am proud to have been associated with the Egyptian Revolution. I have participated in the preparation for this revolution through my fiction and non-fiction writings. I participated in the revolution as soon as it began in 2011. I spent 18 days in Tahrir Square, which were the most beautiful period in my life, to the point where I sometimes asked myself whether I was dreaming or living the reality of this miracle. From a makeshift stage, each night I spoke in the microphone to hundreds of thousands of protesters in Tahrir Square. I held press conferences in my downtown Cairo clinic every day at 1 p.m. to tell foreign correspondents of the developments and expose the crimes of the regime. Thousands of times I have written the word the people, but the first time for me to know the true meaning of the people was in Tahrir Square. Living, eating, and drinking with 1 million people who believe they belong to one family. People you don't know bring food for everyone to share. Yahya Hussein, a friend, engineer and revolutionary, was on the organizing committee of Tahrir Square. Yahya is now imprisoned by the current regime. Some of the people who came to Tahrir Square are workers who earn their living day by day. We agreed to collect contributions to make up for the income they have lost. we gathered 14,000 Egyptian pounds. Yahya took the money and passed by the tents of the workers and offered to loan them any money they needed. As a matter of fact, the money was not a loan, but we wanted to preserve their dignity. Yahya returned 4 hours later without distributing one single pound. All of them refused to accept or borrow any money. These same men and women were on the front lines defending Tahrir Square, trying to push us back, telling us when the revolution succeeds, Egypt will need you more because you are educated. I will never forget the martyrs and the injured youth who took to the streets demanding freedom and were shot and killed by the regime in cold blood. In Tahrir Square, death turned from a terrifying idea into a routine experience that could happen to you or to someone next to you. I helped carry tens of the revolution's martyrs and wounded. I will always remember a young man who approached me and said, "You must write a novel about this revolution." And I said, "I will write one." And he said, "Is that a promise?" I said, "Yes, promise." That young man, who I clearly remember, minutes later was shot in the forehead by a sniper. I kept my promise. I wrote a novel on the revolution. Its English title is The Republic of False Truth. I remember that after completing the first chapter, my wife asked me, "How is the novel going?" And I said to her, "The writing is going well, but we will need to leave Egypt." As soon as Abdel Fattah al-Sisi became the president of Egypt in 2014, I was banned from everything in my country. I was banned from writing in the newspapers, from publishing my books, from appearing on TV, and from hosting my weekly seminars. My latest novel was published in Lebanon. Soon after it appeared, I was referred to a military court, charged with insulting the state institutions, because my novel recounted the crimes committed by the military and security forces against peaceful protesters. I have no regrets on what I wrote. If I were to turn back the clock, I would have done it all over again without a single moment of hesitation. I am reminded of a quote by the Latin American revolutionary Che Guevara. He said, quote, "The honor means to always say what you think and to always do what you say." That's what I try to achieve as a writer. Let's talk now about creative writing. In addition to my own creative writing workshop, I have had the opportunity to teach creative writing at Bard College, Dartmouth College, and here at Princeton. I teach creative writing and reading fiction in 2 12-week courses. So I will do my best. I will do my best to try to give you an idea about how I teach creative writing. But of course, it's just 1 hour or 2 hours. I won't be able to say everything about my teaching. I always insist to teach reading fiction with creative writing because I believe that it's impossible. To me, it's impossible to be a good fiction writer without being a good reader of literature. Today, we'll discuss 3 subjects: the main concepts of literature, some basic tactics in creative writing, and how to appreciate fiction. The first concept is, what is literature? What is, I think we should agree about a definition of literature. What is literature? I must tell you that literature is not easy to define, because literature belongs to life, and what belongs to life is not fully definable. Those like myself who have studied medicine remember the first lesson in physiology. The first lesson in physiology was, we cannot define life, but we can infer the existence of life from its manifestation: respiration, movement, reproduction. Anything technical or mechanical is fully definable. We can easily define the table, the phone, or the car. Yet, literature, art, love, friendship, sadness, joy are not easily definable, because they are not technical. They belong to life. However, I will give you a definition I like of literature. Literature is a life on the papers that is similar to our daily lives, but more significant, more profound, and more beautiful. So we have 4 conditions here, 4 conditions: living, significant, profound, and beautiful. Let's begin by living. When we read a novel, we must forget it's a novel. We must see the characters and hear their voices and see them move on the screen of our imagination. If you keep thinking that this is a novel, it means that the novel is not a living novel. You must forget it's a novel. Then here, Gian Giacomo Feltrinelli, the Italian intellectual and famous publisher, said, quote, "I only know 2 types of novels: living novels and dead novels. My job is to publish the living novels." The second condition is, literature should be significant. Not our lived experiences are significant. If I ask you to write about the childhood of one of your characters, it is impossible to write everything that happened in a decade. You should, as a writer, choose significant events that will give us the sense of the childhood. Imagine this scene. An alcoholic father abandons his wife with her child to a life of poverty. One day, the child came from school. Somebody met him in the street and told him, "Hey, your mother went crazy." The child didn't believe, or didn't want to believe. He ran to see his mother. He found the front door of the house wide open. His mother had a dazed and confused look in her eyes. She talked about dangerous people who are after her. The child cried and understood that his mother's weakened mental state, and she is no longer the mother he knew. This vivid scene was written by Charlie Chaplin in his autobiography. And it's one of the most powerful scenes I have ever read. You can see here how a few lines could tell you about an entire childhood. This is what we call the significant writing. Now, the third condition is literature should be more profound than our lives. Most of the events of our lives are not profound. Let us take few examples. The kitchen sink is blocked. You call the super of the building. Driving around the block in search of a parking spot. Paying the toll for crossing the bridge. Waiting in line for coffee at Starbucks. We pass through all these experiences, but they are not profound. We easily forget them. On the other hand, we live profound experiences we will never forget. The excitement just before our first kiss, our first sexual experience, a girl's first menstruation, the first day in college, and the day we graduate, the decision to immigrate or change careers, discovering your sexual identity. All of these are profound moments. Literature ignores what is trivial and superficial, and it's only concerned about the profound and meaningful events of our lives. The fourth condition for literature is the beauty. If the three conditions are met in a text, if the text is living, significant, and profound, then the fourth condition will be achieved, the literary beauty. Now, the second concept, the second question, what is the role of literature? Why we need literature? If we do need literature, what about if the literature never existed? What is the role of literature? First, the literature not only gives us the joy of imagination, it's a pleasure, it's a joy to imagine when you read the novel. Number one. Number two, you have not only the joy of imagination, you have the power of imagination. And here, I would say something that happened to many people is that you read a novel and you love the novel, and then when you see the film adapted from the same novel, you don't like it very much. You don't feel very comfortable. Why? The movie might be good, but the characters on the screen are not as we imagined when we read the novel. We are left somehow betrayed. The film has stripped us of our power of imagination. As we read, we see the characters, we have the power to imagine them the way we want. But when you see a film, it is the filmmaker who imposed on us his imagination, and we have no more the power of imagination. So it's very important that the role of literature is to give us the joy and the power. Great literature also takes us inside a different world, new experiences. Even if you live 100 years, you will live one life. But every novel you read, you live another life. If you don't know about fishing, If you read Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, you will have the experience. If you don't know who are the Berbers, ethnic group who live in Algeria under the French occupation, if you don't know who are these people, if you read the wonderful novel, The Poor Man's Son, The Son of the Poor, by the Algerian writer Mawlud Frouon, you will understand their suffering. Every novel we read add to our life another life with new experiences. The third rule of literature is to teach us not to judge people, but to try to understand them. Here we have a wonderful story, despite the fact that it's a sad story. A Greek Russian writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, was arrested 1849 for belonging to a literary group that circulated banned books critical of the Russian Tsar. Dostoevsky was given a death sentence. At his execution, the first row of alleged offenders were shot. You can see there is a Russian artist who was inspired by this story and drew this painting to give you an idea about Dostoevsky was in second row. The first row was people were killed, were executed. Dostoevsky's turn was up next when a last-minute amnesty from the Tsar commuted his sentence to prison term in Siberia. Dostoevsky described he spent in Siberia 4 years with the criminals, and he wrote one of the most important novels of all time. It's called The House of the Dead. And in these characters, Dostoevsky, all he described his experience in prison, all his characters are criminals, all. Because it was not a prison for political prisoners. They are criminals, convicted criminals. But he was able, as a Greek writer, to discover the human feelings in the criminal psychology. In one scene, there was a prisoner who was dying. He got sick and he was dying. And the other prisoner cried beside the bed, in front of the bed. So the narrator, who is Dostoevsky, asked the man, the prisoner who was crying, "Why do you cry?" They are both criminals, the dying man and the man who is crying. And then the answer was, "I cry because he," the dying prisoner, "two," please listen to this. I'm going to repeat it because it's very important. "I cry because he, comma, two, comma, had a mother." In this two, between two commas, we find the meaning of literature. Here is the meaning of literature in one sentence, in one word. Because what does it mean to? It means, yes, he was a criminal. Yes, he might have done horrible things in life. But he, too, is a human being who has a mother to cry for him when he dies. With the social, another example, this is an example by Dostoevsky. The other example is the social condemnation of a married woman engaged in affair with a lover. Despite the social condemnation, Two great novels of the 19th century present the unfaithful wife without judgment. Madame Bovary by the French writer Gustave Flaubert, and Anna Karenina by the Russian writer Leo Tolstoy. Flaubert was referred to trial on charges of harming the values of the society. Why? Because he presented the character of Emma Bovary without judgment. Greek literature teaches us to understand the people, not to judge them. Number 4, literature let us know that while we may be different, we share the same humanity. When we read literature, we forget personal loyalties. We never think of the characters according to their gender, race, religion, or nationality. We see the human being. We only see the human being. And a mother loves her children in the same way in China, India, or Europe. Two young lovers are moved by the same emotions in Egypt, America, or Nigeria. There is no better training in tolerance like reading literature. And that's the reason why the fanatics and extremists they hate literature, because its power to humanize, tolerate, and forgive. Finally, of course, reading Greek literature transforms us into better human beings. Now, I'm going to talk about some basic tactics in creative writing. Of course, as I told you, I teach this course with the reading fiction over 12 weeks. I did that at Princeton. So, of course, in a couple of hours, in 1 hour, I won't have time to say exactly what I was teaching, but I will try to give you an idea about my concept and how I teach creative writing. So of course, there are many tactics in creative writing, and they are all important, essential, very important. But I did choose some basic tactics, understandable, I hope, even for the people who haven't studied creative writing. So the first tactic is what we call the strong opening. This is a very important tactic, how you open the text. And you open the text in a short story or in a novel, you must know as a writer how to do that. So the first sentence in the literary text must be strong, decisive, graceful, suggesting the content, yet not revealing it. Suggesting, but not revealing, in order to attract the reader to continue reading. I brought some examples, quick examples. Look at this. This is a master of writing. And look at this strong opening. In Mulman, in Lower Burma, I was hated by large numbers of people. The only time in my life that I have been important enough for this to happen to me. What a strong opening. This is George Orwell, one of the masters of writing in the English language. And you see how he opens. It's wonderful. Another opening, another strong opening. Mom, but this is a French. Maman died today. Maman died today, or yesterday, maybe. I don't know. I got a telegram from the home, mother deceased, funeral tomorrow, faithfully yours. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it was yesterday. This is a strong opening by Albert Camus in the novel The Stranger. You see, it's very attractive. We don't know if this is a hallucination, his mother died really. What is this? How he doesn't know, or he doesn't believe, you know. So this is strong opening. The third one, I'm going just to read it, but I'm not going to comment on it because it's in my novel. The distance between Bahlar Passage, where Zaki Beit Dessouki lives, and his office in the Jacobian building is not more than 100 meters, but it takes him an hour to cover it each morning. This is the beginning of the Jacobian building. So I hope that now the strong opening would be very clear to everybody. Now, there is another tactic, very important, the significant sentence. The significant, you should know as a fiction writer how to write a significant sentence. The significant sentence is a sentence in a conversation that reflects, describes the whole situation in one sentence. I'll give you an example now. Listen to this sentence. I spoke to the doctors. They say there is nothing more they can do. It's time to take our father home. We understand. We understood. One sentence. We understand this is terminal case. The doctor said they have nothing to do more, and let's bring our father home to die. This is a significant sentence. Another significant sentence, which is terrible, we will keep beating you until you tell us what we need to know. Confess, or we will dump your body in a grave. Of course, it's a significant sentence. Somebody is tortured by an officer, and in one sentence you understand the situation. Third sentence, just for you to get the idea of a significant sentence. I must be honest with you. This is a sentence. I must be honest with you. It's over between us. I have another man in my life. Very clear. This is significant sentence. There is the insignificant sentence. And this sentence is insignificant. It could be applied in any situation. It doesn't reflect any situation. Like what? Like, thank you, I appreciate it. Not at all. Yes, please. All those are insignificant sentences. They could be applied in any situation. Now, we get from the significant sentence to the significant conversation. A conversation, and as a writer, and I'm going to show you some great writers, how they are capable to make a significant conversation. A good writer, fiction writer, a real fiction writer, must know how to do that. And I'm going to give you, listen to this conversation. We don't know who's talking. He is drunk now. He is drunk every night. The answer is he's drunk every night. What did he want to kill himself for? How should I know? How did he do it? He hung himself with the rope. Who cut him down? His niece. Why did they do it? Fear for his soul. How much money has he got? He's got plenty. He must be 80 years old. Anyway, I should say he was 80. This is a significant conversation by Ernest Hemingway in a wonderful story called Clean, Well-Lighted Place. I highly recommend this story. One of his best short stories. Clean, Well-Lighted Place. And you will find this conversation. We understood. We understood. They are talking about somebody who's drinking, a drunk man, and he committed suicide and he's frustrated. We understood, despite the fact that we don't know who's talking. But Hemingway is Hemingway. He's capable to do that, you see. And another one, wonderful one, conversation. How can I, you see, please follow this. How can I help you? The keys to the symmetry. The keys to the symmetry. In this heat, you could have waited until the sun went down. Which grave are you going to visit? Which grave are you going to visit? Carlos Centenos. This is the name. Carlos Centenos. Who? Carlos Centenos. He is the thief who was killed here last week. I am his mother. You see how the significant conversation, this is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and a wonderful story. I did assign this story for the readings called, in Spanish, La Siesta del Martes. La Siesta del Martes. And you see how he was capable to push us inside the drama quickly in just few lines. This is what we call significant conversation. Now, the last tactic, of course, there are many tactics, but I just picked up some tactics to be explained today, but to give you an idea, is the literary character. This is very important. As a matter of fact, any novelist, and many people say that, and I do believe in that, many novelists is two persons. The one person who is living with the people, and the other person who is observing, who has a very sensitive and efficient camera, and he is just taking photos for everything. And then when you write to create, when you set to create your character, you will, the observer, the other person, will give you the archive. I'm going to write about a professor of whatever, comparative literature, you know, at Princeton. Somebody will come to my mind, but I will change, usually. Very rarely that you find a person who could be used as a literary character without change. Usually you add or you omit something, you add something, and then at some point you feel that this is very important. You feel that the characters do exist. What I'm going to say is very weird, but I tell you that all the novelists who talked about how they write said the same thing. So it's not me, it's not only myself. You write, you create the characters, you feel the characters exist, and you begin the writing, you push your characters, you push them. At some point, your characters become independent. They will decide for themselves. You cannot impose on them anything. It sounds very weird, but as I told you, all the novelists describe the same thing. myself included, of course, this happened to me, is that you just follow what your characters are doing on the screen of your imagination, and you write down what you see. Give an example. I was writing the Yacobian building. By the end of the novel, I write very early in the morning. I wake up 6 a.m. and I write from 7 to 1 p.m. So I was writing, and there was an old man who fell in love with a young lady, and for some reasons in the novel, they got arrested by the Egyptian police and they got really humiliated. And then they were released, and the young lady, was really frustrated and traumatized. So he said to her, the old man, we must forget all what happened. And she said, she said that, I have been always an unlucky person. I finished writing in the morning, and I felt very bad for the lady because she has been really unlucky. And I kept thinking of her. And the next morning, I opened the laptop, I went to my office, I opened the laptop. I discovered that they got married overnight. And I was very happy. I went out of my office, that was like 6:45, and my wife told me, what? Why you look so happy and smiling? I said, they got married. I'm not exaggerating. This really happened. And I'm very happy because it happens to me all the time. And I read the experience of other writers. But I'm very proud because it happened even to some students. I taught them creative writing. So I'm very happy. Very few, but it happened. Now, the last thing before I ask Dr. Greg to open the discussion, probably we'll have a break. How could we appreciate literature? How should we appreciate literature? Here in my class, I do that. I do what I'm going to do now. I give flowers to all the students. Of course, I would have liked to, but I cannot give you flowers today because it's virtual. I brought 2 flowers, very beautiful flowers, and I gave flowers to the students, and I asked them, what do you like this flower? What do you like in this flowers? And then the answer is always, oh, beauty. They are really beautiful. Very good. So you have a beautiful flower in your hand. Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to dissect a flower. I'm going to dissect flower like this. To dissect it like this. And then like this. And then like this. Okay. Now I have 2 flowers. Which flower is a beautiful one? The answer is obvious. The intact flower. The dissected flower lost its beauty. Again, I will repeat. When you dissect the flower, you destroy the beauty. Fine. This is exactly what I want to explain in literature. When you dissect a piece of literature, a text, a story, or a novel, it will lose its beauty. You should try to understand the novel or the story without dissection. You try to analyze, you try to understand the components while the text is intact, without dissection. And I mean by I think dissection here is understood. You just don't get too much in theories and try to, because you will dissect the flower. You must keep the flower to keep its beauty. Keep the flower intact. Thank you very much, and thank you for everything. And after that, Dr. Greg will open the discussion, or probably will give us 5 minutes break, as you like.
Well, yes, thank you very much. This was great. I don't know about you all, but I have a feeling there's going to be a raft of new writers emerging after this talk, because if nothing else, it's encouraging to hear someone talk, not just about literature, but the positive energy you have about it as a craft, as an enterprise. So it's really nice. I'm actually teaching a course in Arabic short stories this semester, so lots of what you said is going to get, I'm one of those people who believes thoroughly in stealing rather than thinking. And so I'm going to steal a few of your ideas.
Thank you.
But I will acknowledge where they came from.
Thank you.
Okay, I think what we will do, I think Dr. Alaa certainly deserves a quick break. So why don't we take a no more than 5 minutes break, and when people return, you don't have to sign out or anything, and then we'll pick up with some questions and answers, and I'm sure people have lots of questions.
Thank you very much. Okay.
You're welcome. Okay. Oops. Yes, no one has to hurry back, but just in response to a question I saw put on the screen there. Yes, unmuting microphones is available, should be down in the left-hand corner, but I'm going to ask Dina to tell us. Is it? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
Good.
I'm sorry, I'm new on Zoom.
That's okay. We're all, yeah, no, we're all still getting used to Zoom, even after some time with it. So,
Yeah. It's unlike Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, I have to be unmuted by you. So this is my first time on Zoom. Yeah, but thank you anyway.
you are more than welcome. La shukr ala wajib. So.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Alaa is here. I'm here. Marina is here. Dina is here. So I guess that's enough to get us back on track. I think everyone else looks like they're returning or have returned. So what the plan is at this point is that Dr. Alaa is open for questions. And I think what we will do is, I see there's one there already. We'll go to questions. We will ask people to put in, as we mentioned, in the chat box, either just write the word question or comment or something, and that will tell us to call on you. However, and we will get to Nermeen, who is the first one I see there, but I'm going to do what moderators have done since the dawn of time, and that is abuse my privilege to ask the first question, and that is, Dr. Alaa, so you ask us to look at these three short stories, very short stories.
Yes.
Is it Amin Iskander by your good self, Tuesday Siesta by Garcia Marquez, and Chekhov's story Misery. And I was thinking about these, they put me in mind of Edgar Allan Poe, not in terms of his writing, but in terms of his criticism about the short story and how he said an effective short story doesn't have a single word that shouldn't be there. And it all comes to really focus on the point that the author's trying to make. And I felt that way with these. But the funny thing was, to me, the thing that tied these three together in a lot of ways was the mood that was created by these writers. I mean, it was amazing that just with, the one starts, the twilight of the evening and big flakes of snow. The other one is the hot, the train emerging out of the tunnel and the heat and everything. Also your story about being in school, and the mood of all of them was really hit me as just about right. But let me ask you, why was it you chose these three stories? What was it about these three that made you think these would be ones that recommended themselves to us?
Well, in any literature, there is what we call the now element, when the text is dealing with the current situation politically or whatever. And this now element is the less important element. The most important element is the other element, is the human element. So if you have a story with a human element, strong humanity, this story will live forever. And I'm not going to talk about the three stories. I will just talk about Iona. Iona is a poor, very poor Russian. We're talking about the 19th century Russia, where poverty was terrible. and he is working on a horse to give the people rides. And his son, his only son died.
Yeah.
And he had to work just to eat and to feed the horse. But what is very interesting is that he was looking for somebody to listen to him. That's all what he did need. He just wanted to tell anybody, how his son died. That would have made him more comfortable, just to tell the people. But he didn't find anybody to tell him.
Yeah, I think one of the things that struck me was it was both redemptive and really saddening at the end, where he says, you know, the little mare munches the food and listens and breathes on his hands. You know, it's kind of a very sympathetic connection.
He tried. Nobody listened to him.
But nobody, the only one that would is that
as
poor
you
mare.
said,
Yeah.
He talked to the horse.
Yeah.
He said, you know what? My son died.
Yeah.
Imagine he was talking to the horse.
Yeah.
Imagine that you had a son and he died.
Yeah.
And Chekhov, the great master of writing, said that the horse, you know, moved his head in a way that Iona thought that the horse understood.
Understood him. Yeah. Yeah.
And then he kept talking to the horse. And when you read this story, this is a human content I was talking about. You enjoy the story, you have the imagination and everything. But after that, after reading the story, you will find that I was Iona at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work. I met my friends. I met my neighbors. And I was suffering. And I wanted just to talk. And I wanted them to listen to me. But this never happened. And on the other side, we could have met many Ionas in our daily life, but we don't have time. You are under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I am under pressure. I go to work, especially in New York, you know. I live in New York now.
Yeah.
Nobody has one single minute to listen to anybody, right? So the story is a lesson. It's something he's teaching us. When you find any Iona, you must listen to him.
Yeah.
And why? Because we can do that all the time without realizing how traumatizing, how tough is this, that everybody is suffering without anybody who's listening to his suffering. And many people even hire a psychiatrist, you know, just to listen to them. So I believe this story has lived now for more than 150 years or 120 years. Chekhov died in 1904.
Yeah.
So, and it will live because the human element is very strong.
Yeah, and I think this is one of these stories that, as you said, when you think about it that way, it does make you a better person if you understand you know, what it's talking about. So, you know, we all get that kind of thing out of the,
he said Iona said when he was talking to himself, I know he's gone, my son. I need somebody to listen to me.
Mhm.
I need to tell the details of his death. I would prefer to tell this to a woman because the woman cry easily. He needs this. He needs to
Interesting.
tell somebody, and then the woman will cry and he will cry, and then he will feel much better. That's very human.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's turn to some other questions because everyone's tired of hearing me. How about Nermeen Najem, if I have your name correct?
Yes. Hello.
There you are.
Dr. Alaa. I'm dialing in from Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful gathering, and thank you to the organizers. You said, Dr. Alaa, that for foundations of a literary work is that it has to be living, significant, profound, and that's what makes it beautiful. And in many renowned novels, and in fact, many of your own novels, there are very gruesome scenes that are quite disturbing and traumatizing. And what I wanted to ask you is, what is your definition of beauty? And what do you mean when you say that a literary work has to be beautiful?
Thank you very much. Your question couldn't be more intelligent. Thank you very much. Why? Because you give me the opportunity to explain the difference between the actual beauty and the literary beauty. We're talking about two different things. Beauty, the actual beauty in our daily life, is very much associated with happiness. Happiness. I mean, when you have something, when you see something beautiful, that makes you happy. You see, the literary beauty is something different, because here the literary beauty comes from the power of the art. You see, so the scene, for example, of Iona, the scene of Dostoevsky, the guy who said he too had a mother too. This is very sad, but it's very beautiful. In literature, we have achieved here a literary beauty. You see, it's not the actual beauty. This is something different, you see. So thank you for the question.
Excellent. Next, we have Adam. I see. Is it Adam Amin Benzari? I can only see part of your name on the screen.
Yes, thank you so much for this. It's an honor and a privilege to ask you a question.
Thank you.
So I was just wondering, you mentioned the independence of your characters, and you gave an example of Zeki getting married in Imarat Yaqubian. I was wondering, what is the process that initiates the development of your character, where he goes from being, for lack of a better term, your slave into into your friend? And I was just curious as to know how that got initiated.
Yeah, you know, you're asking a very good question, but nobody can claim that everything in the art or artistic creativity is 100% understandable. You see, I would say even the most important part in the creation is not understandable. But I'm just referring to my experience and the experience of other people. You know, we must admit or agree that not everybody can write a novel, but not everybody is talented enough to write a good novel. You see, accordingly, you do that. Of course, in the beginning of your career, this is very difficult. It will take you a long time to know how to do it. With experience, you know how to do it, you know, because you feel it. You feel it. And at some point, you believe the characters do exist. They are invisible, but they do exist. And then when you write, and then at some point, you find this exactly what I said. How I do that, it's my job. I have been trained, you know, I struggled for years to know how to do it. It's not an easy, it's not an overnight achievement. You should work and work and work and work, you see. And people always forget that when you meet somebody who's successful, let's talk about writers. This is the last scene. There were scenes before. Nobody knew this guy. And this guy had, while everybody was enjoying life, this writer had to stay by himself to work and work and work, and, you know, to know and to understand and to learn how to write, you see. So it's not easy, but I would tell you something. The pleasure you have from writing, or when you feel that your characters have become independent, this pleasure you cannot describe. It's even stronger than the publication, stronger than being famous. It's, you know, there is something you cannot describe, but it's unbelievable pleasure. So if you would like to be a writer, then you must begin now.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, Adam, you have your marching orders. Get out there and start writing. Thank you for that question. Next on the list we have, is it Rakan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't. Again, I'm only seeing part of your name, so I'll do. Yeah.
Never mind. Sir, it's a great pleasure to be here, and it's a dream come true for me to talk to you.
Thank you.
Doctor, I once I watched a lecture for you. You were talking about the preparation of writing before start even writing. Even you mentioned that hilarious story for you in a bar underground in Egypt. I wanted to ask you about it. What is the process of doing this? What's the steps for getting prepared before writing?
Well, here I'm going to use a sentence by Isabella Allende. I don't know if you're familiar with Isabella Allende. She's a Greek writer from Chile, and she lives in the US now. She said, quote, "We don't invent the novel, we discover the novel." The sentence could look like, you know, an easy sentence. No, it's very profound. What does it mean? It means that you don't invent the novel, you discover the novel. It means that what? The novel, you have, if you are a novelist, you have novels on you. You have novels in your mind, in your heart. And your work is to know how to get this novel out, you see, and begin the writing. And that's exactly what happened to me. You know, I had projects for my novels like more than 15 years ago. I had files for the Jacobian Building, files for the Automobile Club, files for Chicago, and I always just add some details. And then at some point you click, there is a click. By the way, just to explain what happened, I'm writing now a novel about Alexandria. I have 44 publishing houses all over the world which are publishing my novels. So I signed with my publishers to write Alexandria. And I began writing, and then at some point I had to stop because I felt like writing the novel of the revolution. And I explained to them, and they were very supportive. Why? I don't know why, but at some point you feel like, no, I'm going to write this novel and not the other one.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Rakan. Dalia Asaya, I believe, is next. Yes.
Hello, thank you so much, Dr. Alaa, for this very interesting workshop.
Thank you very much.
It's great pleasure. Thank you. I have a lot of questions, but the main one now came to my mind that don't you feel sometimes what I would write, everybody wrote everything, or you're a bookworm, so you read a lot, and a lot of important novelists. So don't you feel like what I will do more or different?
Well, the most important thing, that's a very good question, by the way. The most important thing is not to compare yourself to anybody. You have something to say, you say it, you see. And don't think of writing a masterpiece, but because masterpieces don't work this way. You see, I had a big problem after the first success. Why? Because you have two options: either to try to reproduce the same formula, the novel which has had all this success. I am the author, I know how to do it, you see. So I decided at some point to write another novel, very different, and to accept the fact that this novel will never have any success whatsoever. And this will make you feel comfortable and write peacefully, because I'm not looking for the success. Of course, I was lucky enough that the other novel, which was Chicago, had a similar success. But this is very important. You write something because you must write. You must write. You have something to say. Don't think about anything else. Don't think about the success. Don't think about the reaction of the readers. I had many problems in Egypt, you know, because people are not, now the whole society has become very too conservative, you know, and people are attacking you and they never read anything. They're just attacking you because you had, I don't know, you had a character who's gay or whatever, you know. Accordingly, you should not think of this as a writer. You have something to say it, no matter what.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you, Dalia. Ian Jensen, I believe, is up next.
Hi, Dr. Alaa.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
As somebody who's, you know, kind of try and put two together and put some things on paper, this is great advice, and I really appreciate it. I think my question pertains to comparing short stories and novels. You gave out, you know, some stipulations and some principles for writing, and really they translate to both, from what I can tell. As somebody who's written both short stories and novels, what would you say, you know, going within the principles that you laid out, you know, and aside from volume, obviously, what would you say tactically is sort of a critical difference between writing a short story or a set of short stories and writing a novel? Like when you're approaching those two different projects, there has to be something different because they're different beasts in some level. So what is that difference for you?
Well, again, I will use Isabella Handy because she's very intelligent. She says to me intelligent things. She said, quote, "The short story falls on my head like an apple. For the novel, I work every day to see it, and then I keep working to produce it." And the difference here is very important. It's the short story is a total inspiration, instant, you know, it's like a poem for poets. You are drinking, you are eating, you have a day off, and it will fall on my head, like she said, like an apple. Oh, I can write it. And many people write short story just, you know, in one session. It's like the poem. there are many things in common between poetry and short story writing. With the novel, the assumption is you carry the novel. It's there, it's here. You just need to know how to get the novel out, you see, but it does exist. You never invent. Don't invent novels. You will never invent novels. You've been living, for example, you've been living your childhood in Brooklyn, for example. You have a novel about Brooklyn. You have it. You can write it or you can miss it, but it is there, you see. So the difference, as you said, there is a big difference. Yes.
All right, we will ask, or we will give the opportunity to Rihanna Tony, if I have your name correct.
Hi, yes, that was right. Good to see you. It's been a minute. I was your student a few years ago at Dartmouth, but it's okay if you don't remember.
Yeah, I do remember. I said to myself, I saw you before. You were at Dartmouth. You were my student at Dartmouth. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And that was back in my freshman year, and now I'm a senior, and a lot has changed. But yeah, something that I've loved studying while I was up here, apart from your class, was also digital art and animation, specifically for younger kids. That's kind of what I want to do, is just create content for children. And I was wondering if you ever had experience writing short stories for children, and if there was a difference in process and what you think that children are able to handle versus, you know, not trying to diminish their intelligence or anything like that. But yeah, I was just sort of curious what your thoughts were on that.
Thank you very much. I think writing for children needs a very special talent. I tend, which is, you know, you cannot underestimate this talent. It's a unique talent, and you should be really talented to do that for this kind of writing. What I did is something we call in Spanish cuentos para niños y grandes. I wrote that. I wrote like stories about the animals, you know, but it is not only for kids. You can, well, hopefully that's what I had in mind. This category is different than writing for children, you know, and if you go, you will find this. For example, the famous French poet La Fontaine, he wrote Fable de La Fontaine, is that stories about animals. For the kids, it's fun, but for you, you will understand many things, because it was for kids and grown-up people, readers. That's what I can do. I did it. But for children, I don't think I have the talent to write only for children.
That I was put in mind there for a moment of things like Kalila wa Dimna, and
yes,
you know, so there's a long tradition in Arabic letters. Or Zakaria Tamer does this too now, you know, nowadays, or you know, writes for children. But it's the Kalila wa Dimna are that kind of story that are superficially about animals and kids and things, but there's the depth of them is incredible. Yes. They're more like your short stories for children. Yeah. Excellent. Let me call on Ahmed Abdul Muttalib, because he has had his hand up on my screen for some time. Ahmed, are you there?
Yes. How you doing?
Good.
I'm fine. Dr. Alaa is my friend, long time, but here I always enjoy having.
Hi, Mr. Ahmed. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Doctor?
Very good.
I always enjoy Dr. Alaa's lectures, because it's very, very useful for me as general knowledge and also writing too. So my question, Doctor, this time is I like so much always that you say that the characters are acting on their own and you just follow their action. My question is, if I'm writing a character, all right, and they act in a way which is different and you don't condone about the character that you created, like you created such person and he is supposed to be acting in such a way, in his own way, but in the path that you started the character with. If this character would do something that you don't condone, would you let it go? And yeah, I mean, do you write it down as is, or do you change the sentence or change the way this character would think?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Yeah. I have no choice. It's too late, you see. And this happened to me, and I would say it happened really, really many times. That the character at some point will act in a terrible way, you know, or a very stupid way. And you try, of course, it's too late. So you try to convince the character to never work, of course, right? And the fact that if you don't like what the character is doing, you will just admit what he did. It's not fair. It is not fair. And you will destroy the whole novel. But it's not fair. Why? Because there were rules you and the characters did agree on in the very beginning. The character will be created by yourself, and then after that you will do whatever he or she wants to do. So the fact is that now you want just to destroy the whole, no, it's not good. I never did that. But many characters, this is true. For example, in Chicago, the guy who at the last moment wasn't able to say the truth. I felt very bad, you know, but that was, and I didn't expect this, you know, but he did it. He couldn't at some point. That was too much for him to just to face the president. I didn't expect, you see, but when he did that, okay, what can I do?
Yeah, and it's certain that instance, friend, it fit perfectly in the novel. So I mean, yeah, you had to do what he wanted to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're a hostage of your own creation.
Yes.
How about Sheriff Pardaoud? If I have you there, yes. There we are.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Alaa. I'm a huge fan of you. I've read almost all.
Thank you very much.
But I've read them in Arabic, all of them. Right now, I'm reading your book, Jumhuriyat Kaanna, for the second time.
You read in Arabic?
Yes, actually, all of your books in Arabic. I enjoy really your books. I like the sweetness and the irony and laughing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Since my childhood, I was a huge fan of Najib Mahfouz and so on, and many other writers. But I mean, maybe 10 years ago, so I discovered you, and actually I met you in Denmark here, and asked you some Louisiana. Yes.
Yes, I went to Denmark, and it's a wonderful country, and Louisiana is a wonderful festival, and I made very important meetings at Louisiana. Yes.
Yes, and I met you there. I'm living 1 hour from there. I've lived half of my life in Denmark. My question is actually maybe it's a luxurious problem. Some of us have speaking or being able to speak different languages. For myself, 4 languages. I'm a surgeon here. I'm not like a writer this way, but I've always been a fan of writers and reading and so on. So what do you think? The question is, writing in the mother language versus other languages. For yourself, you speak excellent English and live in US. Would you ever write in English writing in English and not just translating your books in English? And that was my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, Doctor. And I believe that there is no one single formula for everybody. So I'm going to answer the question from my perspective. I can write in English, and I can write in French, and I can write in Spanish with some difficulties, but I can write non-fiction easily, and I wrote before, you see. But with fiction, with a novel or a short story, I believe that there is something very deep in your mother language, and even the reader will feel it, and you will feel it even if it's invisible. You're talking as if, when you write in your own language, fiction, I'm talking fiction, right? As if you remember a song, or you hear a song that you think, or you're quite sure you did hear this song years ago when you were a kid. So there is always some resonance, there is always some echo, there is always some meaning in the language that I think, in my experience again, that it will be impossible to reproduce this in other languages, even if you speak the language, if you have a fluent language. You see, that's my experience, because I know France, for example, who mainly Algerian, and they write in French. And in England, you have a generation of writers who are not English, but they write in English. And even the English critics said that it has been very useful to the English language, because they use the language differently, in very accurate use, that the native English is writing differently. So I'm not judging. You're asking me about my experience. I'm answering you in my experience. Yeah.
Excellent. We had a question, Najib Zakian, who wrote here. First off, I should say that he personally misses your weekly lectures. He thought this talk was more than excellent, and he asks, how do you build a character? Do you want to add anything to that, Najib, or shall we?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Najib, because you follow my weekly video, and I do that because I find that it's very important to do my duty, to try to convince the people to change, or even not to change, to make just one step in the change of the people, the way people think in Egypt and in the Arab world. Why I stopped? I haven't stopped. That's because I have 2 lectures to prepare at Princeton. So I prepared this lecture. I have another one in Arabic. So I simply didn't have the time. But I will just resume. I will continue the video very soon. And thank you again.
Excellent. There's a couple of questions here that I believe we've already covered. So I'm just going to read them or mention them. And if the author of this question has more to ask about it, or that I'm misinterpreting it, please just let me know. So this was from Antonius. All I get is H. I'm not sure what his last name is. He asked, what is common in the 3 short stories that you recommended for reading? And we did discuss that. Antonius, did you have any other questions about those?
No, that's all. I just wanted to know what's the common elements in the 3 stories that you want us to pick up from reading them that is related to today's lecture. Thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure to be with you, by the way.
Pleasure
I'm
to
one
be
of the
with you.
most
Thank you
fan of yours.
Yeah, I said that the human factor in the 3 stories is very strong, and they are readable, and they will be always. I'm not talking about my own story. I'm talking about the two stories by Chekhov and by Garcia Marquez, they will be always readable, generation after generation, because you have a human element who's very strong, you see. And you can see then in the Garcia Marquez story, La Siesta del Martes, how could you, I mean, you think that the thief is a terrible person who was born a criminal. Fine. Read the story and see that people are obliged sometimes to steal. The real criminal is not the thief. The real criminal is the system who made these people that poor. And this is a message, you see. And that's why the mother of the thief was not ashamed. She was very almost proud, because she said, when the priest said, you know, all these details, this is a great writer, you know, so everything is in the details. So when the priest said, why didn't you convince him to be a good person? And she said, he is a good person. But he began by boxing, and he was beaten just for us to eat. And then the little girl interfered in a very normal way. That's the way the little girl or a little boy will interfere. She said, he lost his teeth.
Yeah.
And then she said, I couldn't help it, because when I ate, I felt the taste of blood, because he had to get beaten to buy our food. And then after that, I told him, do not steal anybody who will use the money to eat. It will change everything if you think about it. Now, after that, you will understand that the real criminal is the system, not the thief.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that line in the story where she said, no, I did teach him, don't steal from people who can't afford, you know, or are going to use it for their food. Let's see, we had, well, this is a question we already looked at about our friend from Denmark who speaks 4 languages. Let me just say that we all, or at least I, admire and envy you for 4 languages. Maria Bobia, I think it is.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Fadali.
Good afternoon. First of
afternoon.
all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. I'm actually participating from Romania.
Oh,
I am an Arabic language student. Thank you. We studied some of your writings in my faculty, and I just want to say how much I appreciate you. And I would like to know if a beginner writer has to apply all the rules that you just mentioned for us earlier before he starts writing, or the correction will be done after the writing has been done. In my case, I'm trying to write some nonfiction, and I don't know if I should just stay and think of the rules, or I just follow my feelings and then correct what I've been writing.
Well, thank you very much, Maria. I'm very happy that you are with us. And of course, we were, by the way, I wrote about the Romanian revolution because it was an inspiration for us. And I know many things about the Romanian revolution. But anyway, thank you very much. You cannot learn how to swim without going to the sea. You know, it's very clear to me is that you must write, of course, you must write and write extensively, but in the same time, you must read fiction as as many books as you cannot imagine, because sometimes people imagine that if they take one course of creative writing or 2 or 3 or 4, there will be fiction. No, they could a good course of creative writing, if you don't read literature, will make you an editor, a good editor, or a good journalist. But you cannot be a fiction writer without reading the classics, the great, in only one story of Chekhov or Garcia Marquez, you see how many elements we discussed, how many new things we discovered about the human being. So you can imagine, if you read and keep reading, of course you will improve, but of course you must don't stop writing. Never.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I must say, with the questions, I've been kind of, the ones I'm reading out, I've kind of edited out the comments that almost everyone is making, which is awesome workshop. This was great. And I couldn't agree more. I know we're getting close to time, but Gregory Bernstein has written this in a question that I think is perfect after your last answer, that writers need to read. He asks, how do you select the books to read in 2022? Do you have 1 or 2 suggestions that you would put on the list? I assume, Gregory, that's your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I'm not very much for recommending things, and the best book. But I told you, for example, if you can find Maulud Faraon, the son of the poor, this is a great writer. Because, in fiction, you have ordinary writer, you have good writer, and you always have few great writers. And Maulud Faraon is a great writer. He got killed by a terrorist organization, white French terrorist organization. You see, and because those, we call them the Black Feet, les Pieds Noirs, who wanted to stay in Algeria. And then they decided to kill all the significant intellectuals, Algerians, and he was one of the most prominent. And he died in the age of 40. So he left like 2 novels or 1 novel. But this novel is a masterpiece. And if you find, he used to write in French. So if you find, and I think he will, the English translation, I highly recommend, strongly recommend this novel. That's why I don't want to recommend according to the year. It's like, in the 2020, the best was, but this is a masterpiece.
Put a link to the English translation in the chat. So there is an
English translation.
Yeah.
That's very good to know. That's very good to know. Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that we're running up against our time limit. I was going to, and Dr. Alaa, every answer you give, the question line gets longer. But that's
my pleasure. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, but I do want to, I'll just mention a couple things that are here. If someone asks about editing, that might be something that would be worth attending one of your lectures on. Also, someone mentions that your story, Iskander, could be a very inspiring one for children. I think that's true.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
One other person asked, where can we attend the weekly lectures that everyone is mentioning?
Well, I used to do that in Egypt. Now, I'm since 2018, I didn't go back to Egypt. So accordingly, I do it online. After the Corona, after the COVID-19, then I probably will do it in Brooklyn. I have my studio in Brooklyn, Greenpoint. And of course, I prefer to, to meet the people in person. We can talk, even few people. And I have been teaching, and talking to my friends on Zoom. And I hope that, soon we can celebrate the last day of Zoom for everybody.
Yeah, excellent. Well, yeah, I won't even read out all the names of people saying thank you, thank you, thank you. But we certainly do thank you for today's event. And a week from today, we will be doing something similar in Arabic. So those of you who know Arabic, or even if you don't, you should feel free to join us. Again, Dina has been good enough to send everyone the links or the PDFs for the 3 short stories that Dr. Alaa recommended for today, and also the links to his website and the Near Eastern Studies Program website. So I think everyone has what they need as far as that goes. So Marina, I will turn it back over to you to say farewells, I guess.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Alaa, for being here.
Thank
really,
you. Thank you, Dr.
every
Marina.
answer that you gave was like a gem that
Thank
we
you.
can take
Thank you,
away with
Marina.
us. And thank all of you for coming. We really appreciate it, and hopefully see you next week.
Thank you, Dr. Marina. Thank you, Dr. Greg. Thank you, Gina. Thank you. Thanks for everybody who joined us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. We appreciate it. And I was just going to add to what Marina said. This was an amazing collection of people from all around the world, and the whole thing, that just is just fabulous. That's one thing we can say Corona has done, is it's given us opportunities like this. So that's, silver lining. Anyway, so thank you very much again.
Thank you.